Hello everyone and welcome to Tech with Robert to get started with T-SQL course. In this lecture we're going to talk about the left join, but before we get started don't forget to subscribe to my channel, give a thumbs up on the video if you like what I do. That really helps me to know what I do well and what you guys want me to improve on or focus more on in the future lectures. So without further ado, let's dive right in. In the previous lecture we talked about the inner join, and in the inner join we talked about that we have one table that is called the base table. So in that example it was the table sales, and when we perform an inner join to the lookup table, in that case it was a table customer, we will get all of the rows that are matched in both the table 1 and table 2. So we saw that in the table sales we had sales IDs with customer ID 5 and 6, but in the customers table we only had customer ID 1, 2, 3 and 4. So on an inner join those transactions with the customer ID 5 and 6 were not included in the query, and therefore when we summarized sales amount we got the wrong total sales amount, simply because we were missing out on the rows due to the fact that we used an inner join. And so what if we were to take the exact same example that we did in the previous lecture, but in this case instead of the sales representative colleague, instead of him saying that okay, we want all of the sales transactions only in those cases when we can contact the customer, i.e. the customers that belong at the customer table, we want the total sales amount regardless if we get a match in the table customers table or not. So whether there's a match or not, we want everything from the sales table, and that is what the left join does. So just to repeat myself, I'm sorry for that, but the inner join says take everything from table A and table B where there is a match in table A and table B. And the left join takes everything from table A and it takes everything if there's a match in the table B or if there's not a match in the table B. So it will still take everything. So if the table A, if this table here, the left table, the one that is yellow, if this table has, let's say 10 rows, I will do a left join and we only get a match on 5 of the rows in the right table, we will still extract all of the 10 rows, so we will still get everything from the left table. And so what I mean by that is, let's say the exact same example we have in the table customer, we have customer ID 1, which is Robert, customer ID 2, which is Mike. And then in this table here we say select the customer ID, sales amount and the sales quantity from the table sales as, but instead of the inner join we do a left join on table customer, and then we have the same join criteria. The customer ID field from the sales table is going to be equal to the customer ID field from the customer table. And since we said that we want a left join, we want everything from the table sales regardless if there's a match or not in the lookup table, in this case table customer. And so what that means is that it's going to say here, it's going to say okay, customer ID 1, look up to the table customer, we get a match, we include this row. Then for the next row it's also customer ID 1, we get a match, so we include it. Customer ID 2 on the both rows, we get a match, we include it. And here we say the customer ID is 3. We look that up and we see okay, we don't get a match because we don't have a customer in the table customer with a customer ID 3, but we will still get these values, although since we do not get a match from the sales, the s.customer ID, we will simply just display a null here, but we will still get the sales amount value and the sales quantity value that we get here. So if we were to write a subquery around this query and say we want to select the sum of the sales amount from this whole query, we would still get the value 1000. because even though we don't get a match on the customer on this row, we will still take this value and include that in our query. So instead of getting, let me just show you here, instead of just getting 700 that we got here on the inner join, we will still get 1000, because regardless if we got a match on the customer ID or not, we will still take everything from the left table, and the left table in this case is from the base table, so table sales. So if we look at the exact same query that we did in the previous lecture, we noticed that when we did an inner join, we got 670. That was the total sales amount, because we only got sales ID 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is because in the sales table, in the customer sales table, we looked at customer ID 1 that exists, 2 also exists, 3 exists, 4 exists, but the 2 transactions with the customer ID 5 and the one with 6 did not exist, so we didn't get that. Notice here when we run this query, we didn't get sales ID 5, 6, and 7. 5, 6, and 7 because we didn't find a match on the customer ID. But if we change this, instead of writing an inner join, if we just change this to a left join, we say that we want everything from the customer sales CS, regardless if we find a match or not in the customer table, the lookup table. And so now when we run this query, we see that instead of just ignoring these 3 values, we instead just say that we got a null on those 3 values because we didn't find a match. So the automatic value there is null. And if we see here, we saw that the sum of the sales amount for all of the rows, because in this table here, the customer sales table, we have 7 rows. So when we add all of these together, we will get a sum of 4,150. And then if we do a left join here, we will still get everything here. So we will still get if we run the sum of the sales amount, we will get 4,150, because even though for these 3 rows we didn't get a match on the customer ID, we still take these values. The only difference is that the customer ID here will be null. And so that is the biggest difference between the inner join and the left join. So there is sort of a rule of thumb, and that is that inner join is the preferred join, it's the fastest one, but you should only use an inner join if you can guarantee that the values that you are joining here in the lookup table, that you will always 100% get a match, so so you don't miss out on the rows from the, in this case, the transaction table, because here we had 7 transactions, and with an inner join we only got 4 of them because 3 of the rows were missing a customer ID. And so that is basically the only question you have to answer yourself when you're choosing between an inner and a left join. You simply ask yourself, okay, but can I guarantee that if I have 100 rows here, can I guarantee that all of the customer IDs that I have in this table will find a corresponding match in the customer table? Then you can use an inner join. Otherwise, if not otherwise specified, you should use left join, because think of a query like you have, because you can have joins to with let's say 10 tables. And then you say, okay, from the customer sales table, you do the first join, and then you do an inner join to the customer table. You're missing 4 rows. And then you're adding a join to another table, and you're still missing all of those rows. So sometimes you want to select everything from the transaction table, regardless if you get a match or not. And then, even though you cannot guarantee a 100% accuracy from the columns that you're joining with in your joins, then you should use a left join. Otherwise, if you can guarantee 100% accuracy, you can use an inner join. And so that was it for the left join, and I really hope that you guys now understand the difference between a left and the inner join here. if you don't, please write a comment in the comment section, because I don't want to continue this course with a lot of people don't understand the difference, because in the future lectures we're sort of going to build on top of these more intermediate concepts, and it's really hard to follow along in your SQL journey if you don't get these facts straight. So I really want you to really understand what an inner join is and what a left join is and what the differences are. So when I type an inner join here and I say that the sum of the sales amount is 670 but the total sales amount is 4,150, I want you guys to really in detail understand why the sum here is only 670 instead of the total sales here, which is 4,150. If anything is unclear, as I mentioned, please write a comment in the comment section, and I will try to explain it in a little bit more detail so everyone understands before we move on to the next chapters in this course. And so in the next chapter, in the next lecture, I'm going to talk about the full outer join. So I will see you guys there.